Welcome to episode 7, My Dad, My Hero, The Spy, on 8-Ball Corner Pocket with Double J. I've never met a real spy. I did meet Pierce Bronson, 007, working as a stand-in for Gregory Jabari in the movie Remember Me with Robert Pattinson, and Pierce Bronson, 007, played his father. My middle son, another Double J, does modeling with the Ford agency and now does the 007 clothing style. I think it's pronounced Orlebar, O-R-L-E-B-A-R, Brown, Orlebar Brown. So last October, a high school classmate of mine at Frederick High School, Len Doty, knew I was back in town. He called me and said, "Hey, I want you to meet my dad." And I said, "Sure." So I went there and I found this sweet man, I think he was about 88, 89 at that time, by the name of Charles Doty. I also met Len's mom, but she was not doing well with dementia. She recently, actually last week, passed away. They had been married 67 years. Len, my buddy, has been taking care of both of his parents for several years. I knew that Len was his dad, but Len told me that his dad was his hero. I also found out, with talking to his dad, that Charles Doty, that he was a spy during the Vietnam War. I also found out that he was also a Top Gun pilot, and much, much, much more. A true, real hero. Patriot. For the next few episodes, I want you to meet a true hero, patriot, and a former spy, Lieutenant Colonel Charles D. Doty. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll get to see his notebook that he's put together of his life in the military. It's truly, truly fascinating. So tell me a little bit about, what's your name?
Charles D. Doty.
And what was your well, tell me, where you grew up? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Old Hickory, Tennessee.
Old Hickory.
Yes.
And
we had to walk to school. It was a very nice arrangement, and I had a very good time there.
And were you involved in any sports?
Yes. I played football, tennis, basketball. I played in their band.
What did you play at football?
I was really someone that was a defensive person about halfway back. I was very small and after a couple of years of it, I became a manager. But I was involved in about eight different activities in school.
So you played tennis. Were you good at that?
Yes, very good at tennis. We won a lot of championships. I was number one in the school. When I was in grade school, I was defeating all the high school in tennis. And then later on, when I went to UT, I was letterman, double letterman at UT. And I got to play the people that played in high school and beat them. Very happy about it. But then I did, throughout my Air Force career, when I landed on the base, I played tennis at that base.
And did you get a scholarship to Tennessee?
Tennessee.
Okay. And so what was your major at UT?
Chemical engineering.
Chemical engineering.
And I went to school one quarter, and I was a chemical engineer up in Morristown for the Queen of, I think it's the one that's right on the coast there. But it was in Europe. And so I was responsible for the analysis of the chemistry that was going into the making nylon. And I did that 3 months. Then I went to school 3 months and just alternated back and forth.
And so, when you went to Tennessee, And you were in the chemical engineering.
Yes.
What did you want to do? What did you want to do?
I was going to be a chemical engineer.
Okay.
And that was what I was working out to do. They gave me a whole series of tests. I would be bragging if I talked about it, but maybe I should say so anyway. They gave me tests before they allowed me to go into chemical engineering, and handed me a technical book and said, read it. So I read it, and then they said, came back and said, questions. They asked questions about it, and they stopped me, and I had an 80%, 80 words in that time period.
Retention? 80% retention?
Yeah, when I was in the retention, I had 80% of the retention, and the accuracy of the words, it was very good. So
do you remember what the book was about? The technical book?
Pardon?
Do you remember what the technical book was?
It was a chemical engineering book.
Okay.
And it was language and so forth. So they said, you read this, you stop, now you tell me the answers to the questions that we gave you. I was 90% on the questions and 80% on the retention.
Were you the only one taking this test?
I was at that time, but they did this for all of the people was going into chemie and things like technical high skills. They wanted to make sure that they qualified.
What were your grades when you were at UT?
They were good.
Okay.
I had no problem with my grades. Yeah. No. In fact, I was one of the valedictorians in high school. And in fact, the plant manager for one day because of my grades.
And after you took this test, what did they want to do for you?
Okay, I started off at a higher level in the book material, and we did written documents, and we also turned the campus into a large area where we could go out and measure accuracies and the altitude and the distances. And we basically just did base architecture.
And what year was that? Do you remember?
Yes, that was 1948, 49, 50.
And after you got out of college, where did you go then?
Well, actually, I needed money, so I joined the Naval Reserve. So I spent 10 years, 4 months and about 7 days in the Naval Reserve over here on the river.
Here in Knoxville?
Yes. And I worked every chance that I could with them. And then when we came about, I was a co-op student, and I wound up in Morristown. And in Morristown at the Queen's factory, I was of all things, the lead chemist evaluating the materials as it was being manufactured. And I also learned while I was there to play the piano and a few other things.
And
I was in a fraternity house, Phi Sigma Kappa.
Okay. And so, did you meet your wife?
I met my wife the first year I was there. She lived out in North Knoxville, and she loved to skate. And I didn't know anything about it, but one of the guys said, let's go skating. And we went, I met her, and that was it. We never dated anyone else. And she actually waited 3 years for us to get married. Mm-hmm. The military would not allow anyone to be a pilot if they were married.
So what year did you meet her?
Did I meet her? It was 1950.
1950.
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys dated several
yes.
years?
Oh, yeah. They fed me.
Because you were in the Navy Reserves at that point, dating her.
Right.
And then you had to wait 3 years before you got married, right?
Well, it was from the very beginning. That just happened to be how long it was that it took me. I did not graduate from UT. I was playing tennis and things. I went 3 years. And the Navy tried to force me into coming on board, and I opted to come out. So what stretched it out then is I had to go through flight training school.
Well, where'd you, what year was that, do you know?
That was 51.
51. And flight training was here in Knoxville?
No, that was in Mississippi.
Mississippi, okay.
Right. They had a Air Force base down there that belonged to one of the local towns. And we used civilians and flew the T-6D and the T-6G.
Say that again?
T-6D is in dog, and G is in good. And so it took, the training took over a year. So Norma just waited, and she went down to Old Hickory and visited the parents, and everyone just loved everybody. And so that worked out really well. And so at the end of the period there in Mississippi, I was transferred out to Texas, and that's where I started flying the jets. I flew the F-80s.
And who's your wife? Tell me your wife's name.
Norma.
Norma
Jean Doty, right, yes.
And so, were you guys married at that time?
No. I could not get married until I graduated.
Okay, so you went to Texas, you got transferred.
Right, and I flew
you
the
guys were
right.
Separated.
Yeah, and so we were separated, but I could go home on vacations and things like this. And
she stayed in Knoxville?
Yes, she did. And she had a job at the telephone company.
Okay.
She was a telephone operator. And what happened was that I graduated on the 2nd of February, 1953. And
53?
53. Yeah. And 2 days later we were married. I drove up here and we were married there in Knoxville.
February 4th? No, February 4th?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And we went on our honeymoon, which was a trip down to Florida, and because I was designated at that point and being picked up to go into Korea, and so they assigned me that I would go down there and learn to fly the F-86s, and that I would go off and fly F-84s over there. So
you went into Korea?
But I did not go then. Not then. No.
Okay.
What they did, I say this in all modesty. My flying skills were impressive, and they decided up in the Pentagon to pull me out of that program. And they said, "You're not going to Korea." They moved me down to another base there in Eglin Air Force Base.
Where?
There, Florida.
Okay.
And at Eglin, what they did, they had one specialized school, and I took that. I learned how to fly an airplane with a hood on my head, takeoff and landing, and never see the ground. And that was a requirement that I had to finish that graduation. So I became an extremely skilled instrument instructor. And I can tell you that in my entire career, I was never on another base with anyone that had that kind of a rating. And that came to pass real handily and when Cuba and all these things came along because the weather was so bad. So they took me from there. The general who was in charge of, what's his name? Oh gosh, DeMay. He was the real hard-nosed general for World War II ran the Strategic Air Command. He requested me to come to work to him. Well, what they didn't do, they wanted to train me to fly the B-47 better and to handle the training of the new pilots, World War II pilots. So I went to Wichita, Kansas, and I became a training instructor for World War II pilots that had been flying the B-29, the B-17s, and they had to qualify to fly jets before they could fly in the B-47. So what I did then is I instructed them in the T-33, soloed them, carried them all the way through solo, and then at that point I put them in an incinerator, a training section where we would train them and use the equipment that's in there so that they could learn how to fly the B-47. Well, those airplanes were unique. The F-80s didn't have any drops, didn't have an ejection seat, nor did the airplane. The B-47 did not. And so, but this worked out, and we would take each of the pilots individually, run them through that. It would go flying with them, and they had a number one instructor and a number two. I would be the number two. And so what they would do, then they would fly them in the B-47, which was an extremely fun airplane to fly. And if they could handle it, they let them go. A lot of people couldn't. They just couldn't get over the speed requirements and the other
What was the speed at that point?
Oh, if you got a little over 400 knots close to the ground, you got in trouble. The wings, in fact, later on, I put out a movie that showed people how to fly a swept-wing airplane. And because what that thing did, it'll get away from it because the wing on the B-47 rotated, it twisted. And so you couldn't fly them on the deck much more than 400. And the guys that all left there all went off into the Strategic Air Command.
So they couldn't get over the speed barrier.
The power was there. They just had to control it.
Okay. They just couldn't control that B-47.
Yes.
Because it's such a big.
Yes.
Okay.
And because the wings would twist. They not only bent as a big thing, but they also twisted.
There's not a B-47 on there, is there?
No, I don't think so. I think I told you.
I know we got some.
I'll let it go. But I have pictures of B-47.
Is there a picture in the middle?
I have one somewhere around here. It's not up here on this section right now.
I know we got them in a notebook that we'll go through.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Okay.
But I do have pictures of the B-47.
We'll get to that because I know.
Okay, in fact, it's in here. You probably have it.
Yeah.
It's in that.
Okay. And so.
And so what happened after 3 years there, I determined I was a very fortunate young man. Really strong religious person, and I pray and all this kind of stuff, and I accept guidance. And I was going out to T-Bird to fly a guy, and something in my head said, "Don't fly that airplane." And so when I went out and looked at it, and I found a nail in the tire, and I turned it around, I rejected it. And the guy came out behind me, and the airplane blew up on takeoff and killed him.
Wow.
So those kinds of things, I have that in my history. I have several instances like that. But
now, were you considered? They had that movie years ago, Top Gun.
Oh yeah.
Is that what you considered a Top Gun?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I could do that.
Okay.
The base commander was a brigadier general, and he did not fly with any pilot there except me, because I could take. What we did is we had shoot-offs, landing on accuracy on the runway and this type of thing, and no one ever beat me. and I had the good rates and all this kind of stuff. So he started flying with me. So every time he wanted to go somewhere, I carried him. 3 years passed, and it's time for me to get out. He asked me if I would be interested in becoming a regular officer. And he called...
In the Air Force, right?
In the Air Force. He called President Eisenhower. And they in the Pentagon reviewed my records, and I became then a regular officer. They were... my serial number was 27859, which tells you it's a real low number. And we had no other ones there that were regular officers, but what they did, then I was marked in and controlled by the Pentagon. All of my assignments after that point were all controlled by the Pentagon, which put me into positions which if I succeed at it, it just absolutely makes a wonderful difference. And so anyway, I accepted that.
What officer level did you go into?
Oh, the general was one that commanded the base, and he's the one I flew all the time.
Okay.
And
what did they said they were going to make you an officer? What was your level?
Oh yes, you started second lieutenant.
Okay.
Yeah, and General LeMay, I guess he was the commander of the Strategic Air Command, and he had a TISI when I would not come up there. I refused it. I told him I was going to fly fighters. So they put me into a fighter scheme. Then after I finished up my time there, I graduated on the 2nd of February and was married on the 4th of February. It took me that long to get home. And so I went to schools also in northern Texas and started flying F-86. And it was really a wonderful treatment. They really ran me through the F-86A, the straight fighter aircraft. And that was our training machine. And from that type of training machine, we went on down to schools, another school, an instrument school, and which was located down in the center part of Texas. So Norma and I moved down there, and I became combat qualified in the F-86. And so what happened after that is that's one of the T-6s there. That's a D. The G is a bigger airplane. It looks like it, but it's a much heavier aircraft and more difficult to fly. But so I went.
So you were ready to go to combat.
Oh yeah.
And that was Korea?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they decided not to do that. They sent me off then to officer school. And I went to about a 6-week school, I think. It was about average, down in Montgomery, Alabama. And when that was over, they asked me where I wanted to be stationed. I said, I want to be in Knoxville, Tennessee. So they did. The Pentagon transferred me into Knoxville, and there are two squadrons there, 354th Squadron and 469th Squadron. The base commander was a colonel who's on his way to becoming a general officer, and there were 2 regular officers on the base, and it was me and another guy.
What was your duties here in Knoxville?
What they did, they decided that if you're going to do this, you're going to have some extreme experience. And so what they did is they put me on the commander's staff, base commander's staff. I became the flight check engineer for all of the pilots. I did all their flight tests. I trained them. I ran the instrument school because that was the only person that in my entire Air Force career I never was on another base that had somebody that had been a flight instruction person. And so I wound up with that control. And so we were doing fairly well with the squadrons. I flew with both of the squadrons there. And the Air Force decided that the military needed some kind of special recognition. Now, for lack of another thing, I'll call it the A Award. And I want you to know that the people over at Knoxville at Wright Field became the first fighter squadron in the United States Air Force to become an A Award. And I was the director of the training program.
That's Wright Field?
Yes. Right over here, yeah, right.
McKee?
Yeah, McGee Tyson.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. If I said right, I'm sorry.
No, but it's right. At that point, was it called McGee?
Yeah, at that point it was, yeah.
McGee Tyson?
Mm-hmm. It was McGee Tyson.
Okay.
And
so it was based there and on that.
And we had, at that point, we were flying F-86Ds and 86Ls. 86Ds were on the 469th, and the Ls were in the 354th. And like I said, I had to fly them both, and they were different. You had to really be careful. So
they would be here training here, and they would fly them around Knoxville?
Mm-hmm. Everywhere,
okay.
Yeah. And so what happened is that we, the squadron, or the base, became awarded the A Award. And a big, large team flew in from the Air Defense Command out in Colorado. And they stood there and they went through the program with us. They ran the test to see if we could do it. And since I was running all the instrument schools and all that stuff, I'm the guy that flew with them. And this has a meaning here very shortly. And so they were absolutely amazed. And we had a flyover, two squadrons flying over in the shape A, right down through there. And I've got pictures of all that. And they gave us our award and went away. About that time, it was decided that it was time to close the base. They did close the base. And so they had a big competition between the different squadrons to who's going to get who out of that squadron to go. And I was I was selected for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. 54, I had F-86s up there, but they were getting F-104s, and I wanted it bad.
And where was Wright-Patterson?
It's at Dayton, Ohio. And so before I could do that, though, you could imagine the squadron commanders they were pushing people, trying to get them to come. But anyway, they sent me off to Squadron Officer School. I was in Squadron Officer School, and my wife and I went through it, and I got my car to drive home. I hit the Tennessee line. I was pulled over by a police officer. And the police officer said, "Are you, at this point, Lieutenant Doty?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Take your wife home immediately, and you are to report immediately to Wright Field, to Wright-Patterson." And I said, "Do you know why?" And he said, "No." So when I got there, you will see there in the book, there's a picture of that airplane that I went to, and there was a special T-33 there, and it. I was selected by the Air Defense Command to take the T-33, take a grand total of 15 aircraft up to Canada and attack the United States every day for 2 weeks. And it did. Went up to North Bay, Ontario. And I went up there and I had 15 B-47s, no, not B-47s, B-52s. Yeah, B-57s. I had 15 B-57s, and I had 10 T-33s. To attack the United States, I attacked Chicago and Detroit every day for 2 weeks. And the Canadians were very kind to us. They moved things out of the hangars and gave us room and this type of thing. And so it was, from that standpoint, very good. And there's in Wexval, that's in there. Wexval is talked about. Wexval indicated how we won. And we flew against Chicago and Detroit every day. And that was the end of some of the missiles and the ends of the F-94 aircraft.
What year?
That was, let's see. Look at Wexval. It's in there. I was the leader of Wexval. I had, of all things, they had a first lieutenant instructing and working with people that you've never seen them before. But it's in there. If you turn the pages, you'll see that. I'll have to find it here pretty quick. Oh yeah, we can find that thing real quick. Here's the B-47. And if you don't have that picture, I'll sure get it for you.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
That's the B-47?
Uh-huh.
That's what everybody tried to do and couldn't do it if they couldn't control it.
Yep. And here's McGee Tyson. Let me get over here to Wexval.
Well, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed listening Lieutenant Colonel Charles Doty's story. His story is just going to get better. So listen to Episode 8, My Dad, My Hero, The Spy, on 8 Ball Corner Pocket with Double J on Sunday, July 5th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Have a great, safe, patriotic July 4th, and I hope you can really appreciate the freedom that we have. So many people died that we can live here in the United States of America, the greatest country on earth. So have a great week. Double J salutes you.